It is the News Blitz with Randy Wang on Talk Radio 790 KABC. We're here every single day from 5 to 6 talking about the local issues that matter to you most and taking your phone calls at 800-222-5222, 1-800-222-5222, your emails at randywangradio@gmail.com. Search for the KABC News Blitz wherever you get your podcasts and subscribe to my Substack and get the California Report emailed to you every single day, randywangradio.substack.com. And with that, let's begin today's California Report as we start in Southern California because last night there was a big rally at the Wiltern Theater in Koreatown. Now, I've been to the Wiltern Theater a time or two. I've been there to see Nine Inch Nails' final show, only to find out it was not Nine Inch Nails' final show. And I went to, that's probably the best thing I've ever seen at the Wiltern. Great theater. Well, it wasn't Nine Inch Nails. It was Bernie Sanders doing a rally in California at the Wiltern for the billionaire tax. So this is the proposal that's being pushed forth by an SEIU healthcare union. They say they need this one-time 5% assessment on the 100 or so billionaires that are in the state to make up for cuts that the state is facing on healthcare from the federal government. And Bernie came down to say, this is great. We got to get the signatures. We got to get this thing on the ballot. We got to vote this thing in November. But notably, there are quite a few prominent people in California who think this is a terrible idea, including the sitting governor, Gavin Newsom. Now, he's not being super forceful about it because I don't know if he wants to get into a war with the SEIU, but he has said when you put a tax like this, people can just move. And because they made it retroactive, people already have moved. People like Mark Zuckerberg buying a $150 million mansion in Florida, which some would say good riddance, but that tax money is a big reason we have all the things that we have in state government. Because of our progressive tax structure, the top 1% pay 50% of the taxes. But look, I understand the frustration at the billionaires. I understand that the cost of living is getting higher and higher here, but this isn't going to solve any of that. In fact, it might actually make things worse because this money is not going towards the general fund. It's going towards specifically, like a large percentage of it is going to specifically the unions that are putting it on the ballot. Some of it's also going to education, but none of it's going to the general fund. And as Gavin has said, you actually might be robbing general fund dollars, meaning that there'll be less money for all kinds of other things because now this money is going towards here. There's also so many legal challenges about this thing because you're trying to tax not what you have in the bank, but what you have in the stock market or what you have in unrealized assets. And I don't know how you quantify that or how you get people to deduct that, but this is the conversation that we're having here. And that's why Bernie Sanders came down to the Wiltern Theater. Now, ABC7 is putting together a long-form investigative piece on the rampant human trafficking and prostitution that goes on the Figueroa corridor. Sure, it's a running joke about Figueroa at the LA City Council with all the gadflies, but what's going on there is unacceptable. It's awful, and it's been going on for a very, very, very long time. So they had one of their reporters embedded with the LAPD to see what goes on down there. The young girls, sometimes underage girls that are walking the streets, why we put up with this. And hopefully when they put out the full special on Saturday, hopefully when they put out the whole special on Saturday, we'll be able to find out why this is so difficult to crack down on, especially when it's being done in the open. And is it that the penalties are not tough enough for the traffickers or the sex buyers? You know, the Johns. Sorry, Johnny. Now, a story that we've been covering extensively is the 6th Street Bridge. This bridge cost a whole lot of money. It's only a few years old, and it's plunged into darkness because people stole the copper wire. It's filthy because it's covered with graffiti. It had a whole bunch of fireworks the other day. There are so many problems, but this is supposed to be one of the shining pieces of infrastructure that everyone's going to get to see for the Olympic Games if you go to that part of town. So LA has finally picked out a vendor that they are hiring to spend millions and millions and millions of dollars to fix the lights on the 6th Street Bridge. But don't you worry, this time they're going to harden them, and the lights will not get ripped down, and the copper wire will not get stolen, or maybe they'll use something else besides copper. But I don't know how well this is going to work. Notably, and I love to point this out, at last year's budget hearing, when they were talking about all the ways that they were trying to save money and spend money, Bob Blumenfeld asked the analyst's office of the mayor, the people that put together the budget, why they needed money for the 6th Street Bridge light repair and why it was an Olympic project. And the administrator said, well, we want to make sure that the lights are fixed by the time the Olympics are here. And Bob Blumenfeld, who is as cynical as you can get, but I get it, said, well, should we really be fixing it now? Shouldn't we wait till like right before the Olympics? Because if we fix it now, it's just going to get stolen again. And look, the copper wire thing, it's so infuriating that there's no solution to it outside of spending money on new infrastructure that doesn't have copper wire. Because look, it is one thing to crack down on the people that are stealing it, and we should be doing that. And because they're stealing something that has such low inherent value, we need to figure out ways to increase those penalties. But what I have said for a very long time is, unlike so many other stolen products, you're not shipping this stuff off to Vietnam. You're not selling it at MacArthur Park. This is a very specific good that you need to sell to a very specific person, specifically a junker or a smelter, when these are all supposed to be licensed businesses. So how is it really this hard? It just seems like there's some massive disconnect, but here we go again. Now, the big social media addiction trial is going on in downtown Los Angeles in federal court, and Mark Zuckerberg of Facebook testified today. And he said, no, it's not that our products are addictive. It's just that they're so useful. Useful is an interesting term. I don't know what Facebook is useful for outside of reminding you that people that you don't talk to anymore, it's their birthday. So that's nice. Instagram is useful in the sense that it shows ads to you constantly about which mushroom coffee I should try. But I don't know if you could say they're essential and useful. And look, this is a weird trial because they made settlements with some of the other companies. So really only Meta and Google are on trial here. Google for YouTube, which I understand YouTube has addictive elements, but YouTube is also, a very important resource for me. It's how I do all my show prep. It's how I put together the California Report and so many other things, and it's how I watch a lot of my entertainment. But I guess the Shorts feature can be addictive. But I don't know what the answer is here. It's not like we can stop this. We could try doing what Australia is doing, banning 16-year-olds and under, but 13 and under are already banned on these platforms, but they're getting on anyway. How do you actually make sure? Do you have to have it do Face ID? I don't know. What I do know is if you look at the broad scope of things and you ask yourself, since social media really came in to take over the lives of everybody, has it been a net negative or a net positive? And I honestly think it's been a net negative. I think it has made us dumber, it has made us less focused, and it has also made us angrier. But is that the fault of the companies who are putting out this product, or is it our own fault for not having the self-control to doom scroll? So we'll see where that trial goes. I guess the argument you can make is kids' brains not fully developed, so by hooking them on this stuff so early, you're screwing up their brains, and there may be something to that. And Zuckerberg may not want to put down the down payment on that $150 million mansion in Florida just yet. Yeah, when you see someone like Mark Zuckerberg, I start to have a few second thoughts about that billionaire tax. Somebody who is so wealthy that they are literally buying parts of Hawaiian Islands to make their own compound. At that point, while I think it's super ill thought out, sometimes I think they do have a point. Now, onto the Bay Area, where we've heard rumblings that LAUSD is looking to strike again. We're also seeing possible strikes in Oakland and Berkeley, all over the same things. Teachers want increases in salaries. They want protections against AI. But all the districts, whether we're talking about LAUSD, we're talking about Oakland, Berkeley, they're all facing the same challenge. They are having budget cuts because enrollment is down for a whole lot of reasons. Number one, the population of people who want to have kids is down dramatically in a place like California because a lot of people can't afford to have kids in California. So if you have less money coming in and you're serving less students, how does that translate to higher pay? What ends up happening is you end up doing what San Francisco Unified just did, what Sac City Unified did a few years ago, where you are now writing deals that you cannot afford, which puts these schools into possible bankruptcy, which means they need to get loaned out and bailed out by the state government and get taken over. And I guess the answer is, well, there can always be more money. We just need to raise even more money to pay for education. But what are the outcomes that we are getting? You look at LAUSD specifically, look at Oakland. The more money that we are spending, are we getting a good product? Are we getting higher education rates? We are really in the lower middle of the pack despite how much we spend on education in this state. So there's a big disconnect there. And speaking of the teacher strikes, San Francisco Unified's ended on Friday, but then there were a few holidays. So they finally went back to school yesterday. But the district made this $183 million deal with the teachers union. And they don't really have it. They're facing a massive deficit. They have one-time funds that they can use in their rainy day account, but then what happens when that's gone? Well, we'll find out. I thought this story was interesting out of CBS Sacramento. In the town of Ceres, they're having a problem where there's a lot of vandalism at public parks. Maybe it's graffiti, maybe people are breaking the equipment. But because it's such a lower level crime, maybe they don't think people are going to call 911 or find out what the non-emergency number is. So they've got a new program where they're actually putting up QR codes. Those weird things that you have to figure out how to turn on your camera with your phone to scan, and then it goes to a website. They're putting up QR codes in these parks that you can scan, and then it'll tell you how to file a report if you see something like vandalism at a park. See if that works. Any way we can make reporting crime easier, we need to do, because it can be such a hassle to report even the smallest of crimes that they don't get reported. And if they don't get reported, you get all of the talking points that crime is down. Now, something that I'm torn on, because I think people in Southern California and Northern California drive awfully, but I don't like this specific enforcement measure, is red light cameras. And Tracy has one now. And in Tracy, they've already put out 1,000 citations in about a year. And that's not a very big town. And you could say, yes, maybe they'll change your behavior, but maybe not. Maybe you'll just try to run the yellow light faster to get to the red light. It's also, these programs cost so much to administer. The tickets are so onerous and so expensive and so inaccurate too. And some of them, like the ones that still exist around the Metro line in like Canoga Park, on Canoga specifically, like when that camera goes off, it blinds you. That can create a distraction. We got a lot more coming up here on the California Report, including this wild story out of San Diego with a head of a nonprofit that was supposed to be giving out Narcan, instead using the money for, among other things, breast implants. If you want to see any of these stories, you want to see the actual videos of these stories, because these are all from our local news channels up and down the state of California. This is my curated list that I do every single day. You can subscribe for free and it'll go to your inbox, or you can check it out whenever you'd like. randywangradio.substack.com. That's randywangradio.substack.com. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on Talk Radio 790 KABC. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on KABC. Let's continue with today's California Report. You can check it out at randywangradio.substack.com. In San Diego, there is this wild story of a nonprofit for harm reduction. They got $6 million from the county to, I guess, put together some Narcan vending machines and pass out Narcan because of all the fentanyl overdoses in the county. Well, the COO of that nonprofit took that $6 million and used it for breast implants, tummy tucks, trips to Disneyland, trips to Hawaii, paying off her credit card bills, and what do you know? She's been busted for embezzlement. But it just goes to show you there are so many examples of the grift game that goes on with a lot of these nonprofits. Sure, there's plenty that do good work, but there's so little oversight into ones that say they can help with the problem. And I want to know why San Diego gave out this $6 million to begin with. How much money are we wasting on this nonsensical ideology known as harm reduction? Now, another story in San Diego that I've been following is the over a decade-year-long battle over turning the old sports arena area to this Midway Rising mixed-use project. The fight has been that they wanted to raise the buildings taller than the zoning allows, so the locals sued, and the locals keep winning using CEQA because that's what CEQA's for, I guess. Well, the developers say, we finally found a way around it. We're going to build some affordable housing so we qualify for California's density bonus law, and now we can build these towers as tall as we want. But it is so funny. I wonder how expensive this project has gotten just because it's been in development hell for over a decade. And this is a awful story coming out of the Central Valley. This one comes from 23 ABC in Bakersfield. But a former Kern County supervisor was charged with getting high on some kind of drug and sexually assaulting somebody. Horrible crime. This somehow was a crime that qualified for California's mental health diversion law, which means that he can claim that he had some kind of mental illness. He can go to a clinic and get absolved of this crime. Well, the California DOJ is apparently appealing that ruling because it's a little outrageous. But will the judge allow the appeal? Well, we're not sure. In the governor's race, just a small update today. Katie Porter has decided, even though a strike hasn't happened, to post a video called Why I'm Standing with LAUSD Workers because she wants the endorsement of UTLA. She wants the endorsement of SEIU. It's as plain politics as it gets. And oh boy, were there some gems in the California crime blotter today, including an ambassador in West Hollywood who attacked a homeless person, apparently sucker punched him. Now, we don't know what led up to the fight, but it's just another reminder that the people that we are putting on the streets to do the job of law enforcement are not trained to be law enforcement. And in fact, a lot of the people that get these jobs are the unemployable. Urban Alchemy, the West Hollywood Ambassador Program, the Metro Ambassadors. A lot of the people they hire for this are people who are recently out of prison, and apparently they didn't learn any skills in prison, so this is the only job that they can get, and mostly it's a do-nothing job. It's stand and watch crime and report it. Now, look, I feel for people that are coming out of prison that we should have some kind of pathway for success. And I think we need to, instead of keeping people out of prison, rethink what prison is. You know, we always hear about people getting degrees. Can those degrees be worth something? Maybe you don't get out until you have a pathway and a job and a place that you can stay. And we got to set people up for success. But I don't think you do it with do-nothing jobs that, like, for instance, when Karen Bass told BLMLA she needed to give the community interventionists a $20,000 raise because these people that talk to the gangs when they shoot each other, well, if you don't give them $60,000 a year, they're going to go back to a life of crime. And then, of course, this story so many people have sent us over the last 24 hours. In Oakland, Mayor Barbara Lee's car got stolen. The SUV assigned to her, I'm sure her detail drives it and she sits in the back, it was stolen. And it was stolen from inside City Hall. Someone broke into City Hall. There's an update on that, by the way. Someone was squatting in there for 4 days, broke into her office, stole the keys, drove the thing out, and dumped it in Vallejo. What a story. You can see the videos of all of these stories in today's California report at randywangradio.substack.com. I put a lot of effort in this every day, so check it out, share it with your friends, randywangradio.substack.com. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on KABC. It is the News Blitz with Randy Wang on Talk Radio 790 KABC. We're here every single day from 5 to 6 talking about the local issues that matter to you most and taking your phone calls at 800-222-5222, 1-800-222-5222. Your emails at randywangradio@gmail.com. Search for the KABC News Blitz wherever you get your podcasts and subscribe to my Substack and get the California Report every day. My curated list of all the stories that I think are important in the state of California at randywangradio.substack.com. Our next guest is running for Congress in California's District 36. You can go to her website, ToomimForCongress.com. That's TOOMIM, the number 4, Congress.com. Melissa Toomim, welcome to the News Blitz.
Thank you, Randy. It's so nice of you to have me on.
So let's start off with a little education. Where is California Congressional District 36? What is the area you are looking to represent in Congress?
It starts on the East End in Beverly Hills, runs through the ocean in Santa Monica, and all the way south through Palos Verdes Peninsula. So that includes all the beach cities, Venice, a lot of iconic areas of LA County.
Oh, wow. That is quite a big and also strangely shaped district, but a lot of the coastal areas in LA County and looks like the South Bay. So go ahead and introduce yourself to the audience. Who are you and why do you want to go to DC every week?
Well, I used to just be an actress and a writer, and then I caught the Afghanistan bug. I started finding out about what was really happening in Afghanistan a little bit before 9/11, and spent about 12 years or so just completely immersed in it, obsessed with finding out the truth. I can tell you in one sentence, Afghanistan is a border war. Pakistan is the aggressor. And when you know that, you know more than most of the American intelligence community. It's that simple. And then from there, I went and got a master's degree in nonproliferation terrorism from the Middlebury Institute in Monterey, California. While I was doing my research, I started finding out that the people I'd been voting for, and I was always a Democrat, were involved with the people I was investigating for terrorism. And I thought, gee, I better check on my congressman. And there was Ted Lieu standing behind a CARE podium, standing behind an MPAC podium, accepting awards from the Muslim Brotherhood.
So that's when you decided to challenge Ted Lieu for Congress.
Well, first I started volunteering for the guys that were challenging him. And as a volunteer, my dossier on him continued to grow. I went from learning all about his record of support for the Muslim Brotherhood and Hamas, and more recently the Taliban, because last year he voted to keep sending money to the Taliban. And then I started expanding and learning about his ties to China and North Korea. So everywhere I turned, I found nefarious ties between Ted Lieu and the enemies of the United States and the people of Los Angeles County, because in this district we have a large Jewish population that cares when he votes against Israel, as he did in 2024 when Israel was under rocket attack from 4 different directions. Ted Lieu voted against delivering defensive weapon supplies that had already been purchased by Congress. So this was defensive weapons is code for Iron Dome supplies, which Israel needed to fend off these attacks. And then he goes in front of the Jewish community. He goes to the largest synagogues in our district and tells them he loves Israel. He supports the Jewish community. And then last year, for the second time, voted against the Deterrent Act. Now, the Deterrent Act would limit the amount of money that the Qataris can use to stoke anti-Semitism on our campuses. And they have spent They have donated over $6 billion to American colleges. And that's what is stoking the Jew hatred that our students are suffering under. Also, he is a friend to China and North Korea, as I said. And in this district, we have a large Korean community, we have a large Japanese community and Taiwanese community, and Ted Lieu himself actually was born in Taiwan. So he's betraying his own people at the same time.
We're speaking with Melissa Toomim, her website, toomimforcongress.com. She's running for California District 36. Now, let's talk some local issues in the place that you're going to be representing. I was checking out your website earlier, and one thing that you were talking about that I don't think a lot of people are talking about is that the city of Los Angeles is way too big. And maybe one of the things we can do to make it easier to run the city of Los Angeles is for some neighborhoods like, I don't know, the Palisades, Venice, Marina del Rey, what have you, maybe they should start incorporating into their own cities because, as we all know, a lot of the other 88 cities in LA County work a lot better than the massive bloated beast that is the city of Los Angeles. So tell us more about that.
Well, so after the last time that the San Fernando Valley tried to secede from LA, it passed a law saying all of Los Angeles had to approve any community that wanted to secede. But the Supreme Court has actually found that this is not lawful. This is actually unconstitutional because no political subdivision can be forced to obtain approval from outside voters in order to exercise their own self-governance. So I want to help the Palisades and Brentwood. I want to help Marina del Rey and Venice. I want to help Westchester to overcome the tyranny that they're experiencing from from Sacramento and from LA City Hall and from the county, because Marina del Rey is under the thumb of the county. It is not part of LA City. And the county supervisor wants to open the gates to the slips. This would make everyone's boat a homeless camp. So the people of the Marina and Venice is fighting against all the homeless encampments there for so many years. They are fed up and they need help so that they can establish local control. Obviously, Palisades is dying for local control. And other cities like Westchester is being overbuilt like crazy. But, we have Manhattan Beach, we have Hermosa Beach, we have Redondo Beach, we have these other independent cities in South Bay that manage their affairs much more efficiently because they have local control. But another thing I want to do for these communities is to help them establish regional fire departments so that they're not dependent on LA County fire, because Malibu has seen LA County just sit there and let them burn. And obviously the Palisades went through it too. So if like the different cities on Palos Verdes Peninsula want to come together and have a regional fire department, I would want to help them from Congress to fund it.
Really interesting ideas. I got to say, here's what I'm going to say. There are so many people that just think that some of these neighborhoods are cities, we might as well do it. Encino being one of them. Even news reporters out here will call it the city of Encino. It is not a city, but it really should be.
Right. None of the communities in the valley are cities. They're all neighborhoods of Los Angeles.
There's even one called Panorama City, and that's not a city.
In fact, one of my dearest friends lives in Panorama, not a city.
We're speaking with Melissa Toomim. She's running for Congress in District 36. You can go to the website, toomim4congress.com. Now, another thing that you are passionate about is the fact that you'll be representing parts of Los Angeles that were built up by the television and movie production industry that is really, really taken a hit the last few years. What are some things that you can do to help make it easier to shoot productions in Los Angeles again and be competitive with places like Georgia or even Canada?
Right, right. So we have lost so much of the entertainment industry. But what our independent producers don't know is there are actually federal tools available to them to overcome the tyranny, the kind of mafia style tactics that a lot of the entertainment industry unions are imposing on them. So the National Level Labor Relations Board can actually be a friend to our independent producers. And I believe that the best way for us to rebuild our communities is with small business, and independent production is small business.
There you
But
go.
we also need to invite big business back because we lost all of the foundational industries in my district. Toyota and Honda used to have facilities in Torrance. They both left, and they begged Ted Lieu for help to overcome the heavy California tax burden they were facing, and now Chevron's left. So we used to have all kinds of industry in my district, and it's all packing up and leaving California like so many others.
Last question before you go. As someone that's running for Congress representing parts of Los Angeles County, I'm sure you're getting potential constituents always asking you what your thought is on the homeless crisis in Los Angeles County. What can the federal government do to, help or investigate some of the insanity that's going on with all the money we've wasted here?
Well, I mean, we've been throwing good money after bad. Now, the strongest power I have on this issue from Congress is the power of the purse. But we need to spend our money wisely. And what I propose, first of all, we need to identify who the majority of our homeless are. And nobody wants to talk about the fact that over 50% of our homeless are former prison inmates. When they come out of California prisons, they're given $200 a ride into town, and they're dumped on the sidewalk. They start committing crimes of survival almost immediately. They get into drugs because now they're despondent. They're in a hopeless situation. What we need is not apartments for these people. We don't need to take over small hotels. We need halfway houses, bridge homes. That's what we have a shortage of. Constructive environments for them so they can make a successful transition into life outside of prison. I propose that the government leases empty office buildings, places that the landlords, the owners of these buildings are in trouble financially because fewer and fewer people are working in offices. So much of our office work is done remotely now. So we can take these office buildings and we can convert them into halfway houses easily. There's already security on the first floor. There's already controlled access through the elevators. We have multiple bathrooms on each floor. So we separate the men and women by floor. And then we just install some showers. Our offices now become bedrooms. We teach life skills classes in the kitchens that are already there, so we just need some new appliances. And we teach Excel or Word or bookkeeping in the conference room so that these become structured environments so these people can make a successful transition out of prison and into society, become productive members of society instead of people stuck on the sidewalk, suffering, living in squalor. That is not compassion.
The website is toomim4congress.com, TOOMIM, the number 4congress.com. Melissa Toomim running for Congress in California's District 36. Melissa Toomim, thank you so much for joining us today, and good luck in June.
Thank you so much, Randy. You have a great evening.
It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on KABC. Hey, if you're thinking of going out to the movies this weekend, here's what's playing in theaters this weekend. Pillion, starring Alexander Skarsgård, is a story about a timid man swept off his feet when an enigmatic and possibly handsome biker takes him on as his submissive. Okay. I Can Only Imagine, too. I saw the original I Can Only Imagine. Sweet story about Mercy Me's Bart Miller. You know that song, I Can Only Imagine, in the Christian rock world? Well, it's got a sequel. Dennis Quaid's in it. Milo Ventimiglia's in it. So that is something fun. This one looks great. How to Make a Killing, starring Glenn Powell and Ed Harris. Disowned at his birth by his obscenely wealthy family, blue-collared Beckett Redfellow, there's a real name, will stop at nothing to reclaim his inheritance no matter how many relatives stand in his way. I really like Glenn Powell, and I like that he's become such a thing. We were watching some Netflix movie that he was in way before he was like popular, called like The Setup or Set It Up. He's a good time. And how cool is this? If you're into something old school, at the Vista Theater in Hollywood, they're doing on Friday and Saturday midnight screenings in 35 millimeter of The Bride of Frankenstein. That is pretty cool if you're looking for something old school, a real old movie experience. So that's what's going on in the theaters. I'm going to tell you right now, there's only one show I'm obsessed with right now in streaming, and I've been busy this week, so I haven't caught up with the newest episode, but my wife and I were big Game of Thrones fans. We like House of the Dragon. We love A Night of the Seven Kingdoms. A Night of the Seven Kingdoms is the best Game of Thrones has been in many, many, many years. And it has the right tone of, at some points, super dramatic. At some points, it's just super fun and sometimes really silly, but really enjoying that on HBO Max. We've watched the first 4, so we are up to the 5th one, and I think the 6th one is this weekend. And finally, I felt so bad about this. I'm out of town, so I couldn't make it, but I was invited by our friends at the Pantages Theater to see the premiere of Six, which is playing for a few weeks at the Pantages. And if you've never seen Six, it is a great show about the 6 wives of Henry VIII, and they all have different personalities, and they each all have a song that's a different musical style, and it's a really, really fun show. It's also not a super long show. It doesn't even have an intermission, but at the very end of it, you will feel like you were at just the coolest concert. It is a great time. So check that out if you're interested. I really enjoyed Six. It's playing February 18th through March 8th. So check it out, BroadwayInHollywood.com. That's it for me today. Thanks so much for listening and being a part of the show. Tell your friends. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on KABC.